The gravity dome loomed like a dormant giant at the edge of the training grounds, its shell a lattice of reinforced alloys humming faintly under the artificial strain of gravitational regulators. The arena had broken countless cadets over the years, and today it promised to test the newest generation once again. The final exam of the Galactic Coalition Academy's physical trial cycle had arrived, the Gravity Gauntlet. Inside the preparation bay, cadets of varying physiology and backgrounds stood in nervous silence, the sound of their synchronized breathing punctuated by the occasional metallic click of exosuits being adjusted. Kor of Zinthar towered over most of them, his dense, scaled body shimmering under the fluorescent lights. Hailing from a high-gravity world where a newborn could crush a boulder with his grip, Kor carried an air of pride that bordered on arrogance. He stood motionless, arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes locked on the far wall as if daring it to challenge him. To his right stood a leaner figure, Liam Netto of Earth. Shorter than most, lacking the protruding bone ridges or layered muscle cords of his alien peers, Liam often went unnoticed until it mattered. He adjusted the strap of his reinforced gravity harness, his expression calm, focused, without any attempt to draw attention to himself. Kor had noticed him, of course, everyone had. Though he had never openly mocked the human, Kor had never hidden his disdain either. Earth, to him, was a fluke of a death world. Dangerous, yes, but chaotic and unstructured. Strength without discipline was just glorified madness. A chime echoed through the bay. The announcement followed, mechanical and precise. Cadets, report to the inner ring. Gravity sequence initiating in 5 minutes. The group began to move. Some whispered encouragement to one another. Others steeled themselves in silence. Liam fell into step beside Kor, but neither spoke. Words were unnecessary. The dome didn't care about species, history, or pride. It cared only for pressure and perseverance. The moment they crossed the threshold, Liam felt his boots sink slightly, the gravitational shift already noticeable. At this first level, the field was set at standard galactic base gravity, comfortable for most, effortless for some. The ring ahead shimmered as gravity increased in segments, each zone marked by glowing partitions in the floor. Spectators from across the academy filled the upper tiers of the dome, the hum of conversation giving way to a hush as the cadets took their positions. Kor stood in lane 1, his chest rising steadily. Liam took lane 3. Instructors from the Coalition's top war colleges watched from the control chamber behind thick glass. General Rackle, a bristly reptilian commander from Ithrex Prime, paced behind the panel. He muttered something to Admiral Warren of Earth's delegation, but neither cadet noticed. Their focus was already internal. The start signal sounded, a low-pitched pulse that reverberated through the floor. The cadets launched forward, their movements crisp, trained, and unrelenting. The first few zones passed easily. At 1.5 G, a few of the lighter-framed cadets began to show signs of strain. At 2 G, one tripped, struggled to rise, and was quickly escorted off the track. Kor surged ahead, his legs a blur of brute efficiency. Liam remained steady in the middle pack, his eyes scanning the space ahead, his breathing carefully timed. By 4G, sweat-coated foreheads, limbs moved slower. Even those with gravity-modified anatomy began to stagger. Kor didn't slow. If anything, he sped up, determined to outpace the others early. He glanced to his side just long enough to note Liam still running, still composed, still unshaken. At the 6G mark, the strain on the human skeleton became significant. Liam's steps grew heavier, but his posture remained upright. Kor's feet now pounded the track with enough force to shake the surrounding panels. Another cadet, a methane breather from Raxus, collapsed and rolled aside. The crowd had started murmuring now. A few students cheered when cadets they recognized managed to cross another threshold. Others gasped as alien bodies buckled under invisible weight. The dome, designed to increase gravity in linear segments, had no mercy for error. The energy fields didn't care if one's body cracked under the pressure. At 8G, Kor's breathing turned sharp. His joints flared with pressure warnings. But he refused to slow. Every step was driven by centuries of Zintharian pride, of ancestors who had trained on mountains where gravity crushed lesser species. Liam was only a few meters behind, his own pace unbroken, his expression now marked by strain but not fear. At 10G, instructors began murmuring to one another behind the glass. This level was reserved for cadets with modified exosuits, yet Kor wore none. Neither did Liam. The crowd had gone silent, mesmerized by the duel unfolding below. Then came the 12G mark, the final zone. It had only been reached 3 times in Academy history. 2 cadets who tried had sustained lifelong injuries. The third had collapsed a meter before the finish line. Kor reached the threshold first. He paused, breathing ragged, eyes narrowing at the shimmering line of light ahead. His body trembled, his leg muscles spasming under the load. Still, he stepped forward. Liam crossed into the final zone a few seconds later. The air felt like liquid lead. His vision dimmed momentarily and his knees nearly gave out. But he forced himself upright, focusing not on the finish line, but on something ahead. Kor! The Xantharian had begun to falter. His arms flailed for balance. His left foot dragged, then buckled. The crowd collectively inhaled as he dropped to one knee, then crumpled face forward with a heavy thud. Liam's instincts surged. He started to slow, his eyes locked on Kor's unmoving form. Protocol demanded he continue. Instructors would intervene soon. Medics were likely already preparing to enter. But no one moved. Not yet. Kor did not rise. His chest heaved, his limbs twitched, but he was no longer progressing. He was finished. Liam took a single step forward, and then paused. One rule: finish alone or be disqualified. He looked at the glowing archway ahead. Victory. Individual glory. Then he looked back at Kor, sprawled under the unrelenting weight of 12G. Liam clenched his jaw. He turned and walked toward the fallen cadet. Liam's boots pressed deeper into the track with every step as the 12G pressure intensified around him like a crushing ocean. He could barely lift his legs, but the decision had already been made. He moved not toward the glowing arch that marked the finish line, but to where Kor lay, his massive frame convulsing slightly from muscular failure. The entire arena had gone utterly still. Even the ambient hum of the gravity dome seemed to hush in respect, or in disbelief. As Liam reached him, he dropped to one knee and placed his gloved hand on Kor's shoulder. The Xantharian's body twitched again, a reflexive jerk of overstressed nerves. His breathing came in rasps, deep, rattling pulls as his lungs tried to fill against the invisible mountain pressing down on him. Liam leaned in close, not to speak, words would waste oxygen, but to check for clarity in Kor's eyes. What he saw was confusion, pain, and something else. Shame. Kor's species had always been revered for physical endurance. To fall during a trial like this, in front of spectators and officers, meant more than a loss. It was a fracture in personal and ancestral pride. Kor turned his head slightly, his jaw tightening. Liam saw his lips move. "Leave," Kor mouthed. Liam stared at him for a second, then shook his head once, firm and slow. He shifted position, squatted beside the larger cadet, and threaded his arms underneath Kor's. The weight was immense. Liam's spine screamed in protest. His knees threatened to collapse, but he adjusted, gritting his teeth until the pain became something distant and irrelevant. From the control tower above, General Recall leaned closer to the glass. "What is the human doing?" he barked. His tail flicked in irritation. "This is against procedure. He forfeits." Admiral Warren remained still, his eyes fixed on the scene unfolding below. "Maybe," he replied softly. "But keep watching." Liam heaved upward, lifting Kor inch by inch. The Xantharian's bulk was nearly double Liam's, and every muscle in Liam's body trembled under the strain of the added weight and the overwhelming gravity. Kor groaned, his pride visibly at war with his condition. He tried to push himself up, but collapsed again against Liam's shoulder. Liam adjusted his grip and began to move, slow, agonizing steps toward the finish line. Above them, the spectators who had been silent began to murmur. What began as uncertain whispers turned into scattered cheers. Some gasped when Liam stumbled. Others leaned forward in their seats, hands clutching the railings, eyes wide with disbelief. Liam's world narrowed into a tunnel. Every breath was a battle. Every heartbeat thundered in his ears. He could feel his calves begin to cramp, his shoulders buckling under the strain. But he kept moving. Not once did he glance at the finish line. His focus remained on his feet, the rhythm of one foot dragging forward, the other finding balance, and the weight of another life leaning against his. Core stirred again. "You're insane," he muttered through clenched teeth. Liam exhaled sharply, the closest thing he could afford to a laugh. "Then let's be insane together." The final meters loomed like an insurmountable cliff. Liam's vision blurred at the edges. His lungs began to burn from lack of adequate oxygen flow. But he could now see the arch more clearly, its radiant blue lines pulsing softly as if aware of the drama unfolding. With one last push, Liam summoned every reserve left in him and took 3 steps forward. Then his leg gave out. He dropped to one knee, cord nearly toppling forward. A collective groan rose from the stands. Liam's fingers gripped the edge of the track's embedded divider to keep from collapsing completely. Cord began to push away from him. "No," Core rasped. "Go alone. Finish." Liam forced himself to look up. "I'm not here for medals," he said hoarsely. "I'm here to show what strength really means." Core blinked slowly. His massive frame trembled, not just from gravity, but from something internal, something unspoken that clawed at the walls of his upbringing. With a strained growl, Core braced one leg, then another, until he was half standing again, still leaning heavily on Liam. Together, step by step, the 2 cadets moved again. When their feet crossed the threshold of the final line, the dome erupted. The crowd's roar thundered through the air like a war chant. Instructors stood, officers exchanged glances. General Rakal growled, his claws tapping the railing. "This was not the assignment," he hissed. Admiral Warren crossed his arms, his face unreadable. No, it was a demonstration, and it was flawless. Medical officers rushed in as the gravitational dampeners finally deactivated, the weight lifting instantly. Liam collapsed, finally releasing Core's arm. Both lay flat on the floor, chest to chest with the cold alloy, breathing as though they had been underwater for hours. One of the alien medics, a silver-skinned Trailathan, reached for Liam. "You should have let him fall," he said, not unkindly but out of confusion. Liam turned his head toward him, smiling faintly. "That's not how humans work." Core, still half-conscious beside him, muttered, "It's not how friends work either." Later, in the debriefing room, Liam sat alone on a recovery bed, wrapped in thermal foil, sipping nutrient gel through a straw. The door opened and Core entered, not carried, not supported. He walked on his own, bruised and stiff, but upright. Liam looked up. "Didn't expect to see you yet." Core paused, then, to Liam's surprise, bowed deeply, an ancient gesture in Zintharian culture, reserved for those one owed a life debt or eternal respect. "You carry more than gravity, human," Core said. "You carry honor." Liam blinked. "That's supposed to be a compliment?" Core straightened, and for the first time, smiled. Yes, outside the dome, cadets still talked about the event. Many argued about who truly won, but those who had been there, who had seen the moment when a human chose to bear another's weight at the cost of his own glory, knew the truth. The gravity gauntlet had a new legacy, not one of dominance but of shared endurance, and it began with a choice to turn back. The training halls echoed with the rhythmic strike of boots as the next day began under subdued tones. Conversations paused when Liam entered the cafeteria. Some cadets looked away out of awkwardness. Others stared with a curious mixture of respect and disbelief. He walked slowly, soreness stitched into every muscle fiber, but he refused assistance. The memory of yesterday's weight was still fresh, not just the physical burden of carrying Core, but the psychological gravity that followed him now in hushed voices and sideways glances. Liam sat alone with a protein slab on his tray, tearing it absently while his thoughts drifted. He wondered how Core was holding up. The Zintharian hadn't spoken to him again since the hospital bay. Not that Liam expected anything. It wasn't about gratitude. It was about doing what was right, and if others failed to see it, that was their burden to carry. Just as Liam stabbed at the synthetic fruit square, a shadow passed over his table. He looked up to see Instructor Murr, the tall, stern Neveron with emerald exoskin and a mandible twitch that always signaled displeasure. She folded her arms behind her back, her compound eyes studying him. "Cadet Mason," she said, her voice clipped. "The command faculty requests your presence in Chamber C11. Liam swallowed his retort and stood. Mir didn't clarify why, and Liam didn't ask. Speculation was useless. He followed her silently through the sterile corridors until they reached the chamber. The doors opened with a hiss. Inside, a semicircle of high-ranking officers awaited him. Admiral Warren at the center, General Rakal beside him, and 3 alien commanders from various species. The bronze-scaled Drexian, the horned Volan from the Korath Union, and a synth-body Thyrax, whose glowing chest plate pulsed with coded rhythm. Liam saluted, standing at attention, every scar in his muscles still screaming. Admiral Warren gestured for him to sit. "You're not in trouble," Warren began. "But we want clarity." General Rakal leaned forward. "You violated procedure during the gauntlet. Why?" Liam met his gaze evenly. "Because no training is worth more than a life." The Thurtax tilted his head. The Volan commander murmured something in his own tongue before his translator chirped, "He values ethics over metrics." Admiral Warren nodded. "That's not typical among cadets." Liam shrugged. "Maybe the typical ones shouldn't be officers." There was a brief silence before Warren spoke again. "We're placing you and Cadet Corps on a mandatory reassignment. You'll be part of the new Unity trial in Sector 11. Liam furrowed his brow. "Unity trial?" Rakal spoke next. "The Galaxy Summit is hosting a live demonstration for interspecies cooperation. Every species sends a pair. The committee insisted on including a human. You've been selected." Liam hesitated. "What's the task?" The Drexian commander growled softly. "Survival drop on Eltar 4. 1 week, no tech, no support. Just you and Core. If you survive together, it'll be broadcast to every aligned system as proof that cross-species camaraderie is viable." Liam stood up straighter. "Then I accept." Warren raised a brow. "You haven't asked what the survival rate is." Liam's voice was steady. "You wouldn't be sending us if there was none." The meeting ended with formal instructions. He left with a data pad in his hand and 1,000 unspoken questions in his mind. Later that day, the docking bay buzzed with preparation. Transport vessels were lined up, mechanics ran diagnostics, and officers shouted over the clang of tools. Liam arrived at Bay 12, where Core stood near a supply crate, already geared in a black and copper exosuit. His posture was stiff, unreadable. Liam approached cautiously. "Guess we're being paraded now." Core nodded. "The summit wants a show." Liam gave a half smile. "Let's give them one, then." The shuttle that took them to Eltar 4 was unmarked. Bare bones. There were no attendants, no luxuries, just reinforced seating and a silent flight path. During the descent, the silence between them stretched like taut wire. Liam finally broke it. "Listen," he said, "I know this is awkward, but I didn't carry you because you're weak. I did it because I could." Core turned his head, eyes narrowing. "You shame me when you speak like that." Liam raised a brow. "Shame isn't part of friendship." Core said nothing more. The shuttle touched down on Eltar 4 with a bone-rattling thud. The terrain outside shimmered with a red haze. The atmosphere was barely breathable. Crags of obsidian rose like frozen waves across the valley. Lightning crackled above, though no rain fell. They exited the shuttle with only what was strapped to their backs: rations, emergency filters, and basic tools. A signal flare burst behind them. The camera drones activated, blinking blue, documenting every step. Core scanned the area. "Shelter will be priority." Liam nodded. North face of that ridge looked stable. Together they moved, each step deliberate, their words clipped but functional. The air buzzed with electrical static, making Liam's hair stand on end. Core seemed unaffected, but his gait was uneven. Liam noticed, but said nothing. By dusk, they had found a shallow cave. Core used his strength to collapse a chunk of rock as a makeshift door, while Liam scouted for signs of predators. As night settled in, the temperature plummeted, and wind howled like a chorus of screams through the valley. Inside the cave, they lit a minimal thermal flame and sat opposite each other. The silence returned. Core finally broke it. "Why did you really carry me?" Liam looked at him, not blinking. "Because if the situation were reversed, I hope someone would do the same." Core leaned back, his eyes distant. In my culture, survival is proof of strength. No one would have helped, Liam exhaled. Then maybe your culture needs a revision. Kor gave a strange noise, something between a scoff and a laugh. That night, neither slept well. The wind scraped against stone and the camera drone blinked like an ever-watching eye. But something had shifted. A thread had been tied between them. Not of duty, not of assignment, but of trust. It was the beginning of something unspoken, yet real, and Eltar 4 would test its strength. Morning on Eltar 4 came without sunlight. The planet's atmosphere scattered the limited rays from its distant star, leaving the sky a dull amber hue that blurred the line between dawn and dusk. Liam awoke to the low hum of the cave's wind-sealed entrance vibrating slightly from the pressure changes outside. His body ached from the cold floor and the restless night, but instinct overrode comfort. He stood quietly, stretching each limb to keep the blood flowing. Kor sat nearby, already awake, sharpening a thin rock into a crude tool. The silence between them had matured, not strained, but cautious, as if words might stir something better left unspoken. Liam nodded once as greeting. Kor replied with a simple, "We need protein." Liam knelt by the pack and unwrapped the last of their emergency rations. The portions were rationed for 2 days, maybe 3 if they extended hunger. He handed Kor a strip of dried sustenance, who took it without eye contact. It was too soon to speak of strategy. By midday, the red haze outside thickened into a copper mist. The temperature spiked, hotter than it had been yesterday, and a high-pitched trill echoed intermittently across the jagged valley. Kor froze in place, then tilted his head. "That's not wind." Liam scanned the ridgeline. "What is it?" "Trackers. Sand leashes. They detect vibrations. We need higher ground." They packed silently. The cave had served its purpose, but lingering would turn it into a tomb. Climbing with limited visibility was treacherous. Loose gravel slipped beneath Liam's boots. His suit strained against the shifting terrain, and Kor's heavy frame slowed on the incline. Liam watched his step closely, knowing that even a minor fall could cost one of them dearly. Halfway up the ridge, the ground cracked under Kor's feet. He cursed in his native tongue and flung his body to the side, barely escaping a collapse. The tremor sent a sheet of rock skidding downhill. Dust exploded upward. Liam lunged and caught Kor's arm just as his foot slid again. They crouched there for a moment, breaths shallow, eyes locked. "You okay?" Liam asked. "I am now," Kor muttered. Above them, the ridge revealed a plateau, flat, shielded by broken pillars of volcanic stone. The moment they reached it, the noise returned, louder and closer. Liam dropped to a knee and scanned the surrounding rock formations. The copper mist was thicker now, clinging to the air like foam. Kor peered into the fog and pointed. "North! Movement!" Liam crouched beside him. Through the haze, a shadow moved in pulses, low to the ground, slithering unnaturally. Then a second, and a third. Kor's voice dropped. "We're being flanked." Liam's hand moved to the tool pouch on his hip, fingers brushing the blunt-edged blade he'd fashioned the night before. "We can't outrun them. Then we make noise and confuse them," Kor said. "They track vibrations but retreat from unpredictable patterns." Liam nodded. "You do the rhythm, I'll do the chaos." He began stomping in asymmetrical beats, shifting left and right, shouting out random syllables from old Earth songs. Kor took up a rhythm with his palms against the rock, striking it in staccato bursts. The ground seemed to pulse with competing signals. From the mist, the slithering shadows paused, then dispersed in opposite directions. One skidded dangerously close, its snake-like body covered in glistening quills and barbs, but veered off at the last second. They held their breath until the shadows faded. When silence returned, Kor exhaled and sat back. "That wasn't in the briefing." Liam wiped sweat from his brow. Survival rarely follows the manual. That night they found refuge beneath a half-collapsed arch of obsidian. The heat from the day had turned to bitter chill again. Kor built a fire using dried root fragments, and Liam fortified the outer perimeter with sharp-edged stones to deter predators. They ate sparingly and drank melted condensation from the inside of their suits. Kor finally broke the silence. "My people do not believe in collaboration. We believe in legacy. Your victories, your worth, etched into stone alone. Carrying another is considered weakness. Liam stirred the embers. That's a lonely path. Kor's jaw clenched. It is, but after yesterday, I wonder if our path is flawed. Liam didn't speak right away. The fire crackled between them, throwing moving shadows on the stone above. Maybe it's not about right or wrong. Maybe it's about surviving long enough to choose. Kor looked up. Do you always speak in riddles? Liam smirked. Only when I'm tired and hungry. They shared a faint laugh, the first real one since arrival. Suddenly, a blue light blinked on the horizon. It wasn't natural. It pulsed in a steady rhythm. Clearly a beacon, a distress flare, or worse, a signal from another team. Liam stood instantly, narrowing his eyes. It's east. Roughly 3 clicks, Liam estimated. Kor stood beside him. No signal was scheduled for today. Liam adjusted the band on his wrist. We investigate at first light. The decision weighed heavily, but there was no alternative. On Eltar 4, everything was either an opportunity or a trap. The cameras hovered silently nearby, capturing every decision, every flaw, every moment of doubt or courage. Liam sometimes wondered who the footage would matter to in the end. Would it shape policy, inspire diplomacy, or just feed the hunger of spectators? He lay back on the rough stones, staring at the blurred sky. Kor settled beside him, back to the fire, his breathing steady. No more words passed between them that night. But the silence was no longer heavy. It was shared. Outside, the blue beacon pulsed steadily in the dark, waiting. And somewhere across the ridges of Eltar 4, something else was watching. The medbay was quiet, sterile and oddly peaceful compared to the roaring chaos of the gravity dome. Faint hums from stasis units and soft beeps from health monitors surrounded Kor like a strange symphony of vulnerability. He hated the weakness it implied. Yet, as he lay there with the faint pressure of the oxygen mask and the sterile scent of healing gel on his skin, he didn't feel shame anymore, not after what he had seen, not after what he had felt pressing against his shoulder. Human arms, shaking under strain, but never faltering. Muscles nearly tearing, a voice repeating softly but stubbornly, "I've got you, brother. We finish this together." Across the room, Liam sat on the edge of a metal bench, freshly bandaged and refusing treatment beyond first aid. He had denied a nutrient IV, denied sleep, and denied transport. He stayed. His spine was straight, posture military, eyes fixed on Kor. Not in judgment, not with pity, but with that same unyielding resolve he had shown through every unbearable step across the finish line. When Kor's eyes finally opened fully and met his, Liam stood without hesitation and approached. The silence between them was not awkward, it was sacred, a silence heavy with unspoken understanding and acknowledgement that transcended protocols and races. Kor inhaled deeply and pulled the mask down. "I dishonored myself," he said, voice hoarse but steady. Liam shook his head. "No, you didn't. You just forgot for a moment that survival isn't a solo sport. I thought humans were soft," Kor admitted. "I thought your strength came in stories, not in actions." Liam shrugged. "You wouldn't be the first." Kor sat up with effort, wincing as the gravity gel pulled at the bruises across his ribs. "Then allow me to be the first to say it plainly. I was wrong." News of the incident had already spread beyond the Academy's barriers. In the mess hall, holograms replayed the final moments of the race on loop. On the outer colonies, young cadets debated the meaning of the rulebook. At the Galactic Training Council, heated discussions emerged over the purpose of the trials. Were they meant to isolate individual strength or inspire collective resilience? An emergency assembly was called in the great central amphitheater of the Academy. Every cadet, instructor, visiting diplomat, and holographically linked official tuned in. Protocol demanded that Kor make a formal appearance as one of the key figures in the controversy. What no one expected was what he requested afterward. Kor stood before the crowd, his stature tall and formal, wearing his cadet uniform despite still bearing healing scars. When granted permission to speak, he didn't hesitate. "I ask not for reinstatement of my honor," he said. "I ask for redefinition." The crowd murmured. Liam, standing in the wings, blinked, unsure where Kor was going. "My kind believes in strength above all," Kor continued. "We train to stand alone, but I have learned the hardest truth of all. Standing alone means nothing when the ground beneath you crumbles. It is not weakness to fall. It is not shame to accept help. And it is no dishonor to carry another when he cannot carry himself. He turned to face Liam fully. This human did not pass the gravity gauntlet by our rules. He rewrote them. And so today, I declare before the entire galactic coalition that he is now and forever a brother to Zinthar. The silence was broken not by applause, but by the sudden deep-toned beat of Zintharian war drums echoing from the back of the amphitheater. One of the senior Zinthar trainers had activated the ceremonial sound through his chest plate, a sound only used to acknowledge heroes. Others began to stand. Applause grew in waves, not thunderous but respectful, the kind of noise made not for spectacle but for legacy. Later, as the days passed and attention quieted, the Academy's Regulations Committee issued a formal statement. Moving forward, cadets who showed extraordinary conduct of interspecies solidarity and shared completion of trials would no longer face disqualification under solo finish clauses. Instead, such behavior would be logged as advanced leadership recognition. Liam, when approached by reporters from 3 systems and interview requests from 12 academies, said little more than, "I did what any decent person would do." But among the cadets, the moment changed how they looked at each other. Rivalries softened. Respect deepened. Those from isolationalist worlds began asking humans to train with them. Zinthar cadets started watching Earth's rescue history, learning that heroism was not just in winning, but in never leaving someone behind. Kor and Liam resumed training not as rivals, but as partners. During combat simulations, they often chose to run dual drills, pairing brute force with strategy, instinct with logic. Their performances broke every previous record in collaborative courses. Instructors began redesigning drills to accommodate and reward such cohesion. Graduation came 2 cycles later. On that day, under the twin moons of Arcadia Station, Kor handed Liam a forged pendant from Zinthar. It bore the mark of the Korak, the warrior brotherhood of those who had fought and bled together. "This is not just for honor," Kor said. "It's for trust." Liam accepted it without ceremony, because for him, what mattered had happened back in the gravity dome. The finish line wasn't just something he had crossed, it was something he had carried someone across. That, to him, was the true win. And as the new generation of cadets looked up to the two of them walking side by side in the ceremonial march, the message rang clear across the galaxy. Strength was powerful, but shared strength, born from sacrifice, empathy, and unity, was unstoppable.